Mr. President, thank you very much for your invitation and this opportunity to address the European Parliament. I have been a parliamentarian in my own country for 23 years, and during 3, I was with your neighbours of the Parliamentary Assembly of the Council of Europe. So allow me to say, dear colleagues, the United Nations was created after the Second World War exactly because the world wanted to avoid another tragedy of the same dimension. But I believe this was exactly the main motivation for the creation of the European communities, with one very important difference, that the European communities and the European Union are clearly the most successful project of peace sustainability in the world since the beginning of history. And that is why I want to express here my very deep gratitude and appreciation for the strong commitment of the European Union and all its bodies to multilateralism, and for the very generous and extremely important contribution you give in development cooperation, in humanitarian aid, and also in the key central aspects of peace and security that are the core of the United Nations action. You see the European Union involved around Libya. You see the European Union involved funding the AMISOM mission of the African Union in Somalia. We see the European Union in both financial support and training in situations from Central African Republic or Mali, and we're looking forward the support of the European Union for the initiative of the neighbours of Mali, the G5 Sahel. European contribution is today an absolutely essential part of what is necessary to make the UN effective, and I want to express my deep gratitude for that. Dear colleagues, it would be possible to come here and make the case that the world has never been better. And it is obvious that globalization and technological progress have, in the last decades, created the conditions for an enormous increase in global wealth, for a meaningful improvement in the living conditions of the majority of the population, even for a very strong reduction of the number of absolute poor, probably the Chinese contribution being essential for that. And some might even say, looking, for instance, at the number of soldiers killed in the battlefield, that this is the most period peaceful in human history. Now, these indicators might be true, but they are far from revealing the whole truth. And I think it is important for us to recognize that we are facing a number of unprecedented challenges that require the EU and the UN to work together. Allow me to mention briefly 4 of them. First, conflict. We are seeing a multiplication of new conflicts in the last few years, and old conflicts seem never to die, be it in Afghanistan or Somalia or the Democratic Republic of Congo. But the truth is that not only we have a multiplication of conflicts, but they change in nature. We practically no longer have wars between countries, even if there are some threats looming at the horizon. But most of the conflicts are internal, many of them linked to fragilities in the countries, but being internal, they quickly become a regional, have a regional dimension and sometimes even a global dimension. At the same time, they tend to be asymmetric, more and more complex, more and more interlinked, and more linked with the new threat of global terrorism in the world. If one looks at the situation from Nigeria to Mali, to Libya, to Somalia, to Syria, Iraq, Yemen, Afghanistan, all these conflicts are becoming more and more interlinked. You see fighters going from one to another, and then some of them going back to their countries of origin and potentially becoming elements, threats to the security of those countries of origin. And we see these conflicts becoming more and more interlinked. They are indeed today a very relevant threat to our global security wherever we live. And at the same time, it is clear that power relations in the world became less obvious, and with power relations less obvious, it seems that there is no respect, and impunity and unpredictability became the name of the game. Now, in this context, when one looks at the present trends of conflict, it is absolutely essential to create the conditions to revert this trend. And for that, it is clear we need to strengthen multilateral capacity to address conflicts, to solve conflicts, and to prevent and sustain peace. And this is an area where the European cooperation with the United Nations is absolutely crucial. We need to strengthen our own capacity to solve many of the conflicts around the world. But that forces us to look into their nature. Look at Syria. These conflicts are conflicts where nobody is winning, everybody is losing. And not only everybody is losing from the point of view of the citizens of the country, the enormous suffering of the Syrian people, but we see the impact on the destabilization of the region, and we see Syria clearly as one of the feeding factors of global terrorism. Now, the point is that we need to create the conditions to make those that are parties to the conflict, but especially those that have an influence on the parties to the conflict, to understand that indeed these are conflicts where nobody is winning, everybody is losing, and in which the contradictions of interest that might interest are much smaller than the absolute need to put an end to this nonsense and to eliminate this terrible threat for our own global security. And there, as I said, we need to strengthen the capacity of the United Nations, both in conflict resolution and in preventing and sustaining peace, our new most important priority, but we will never be able to do it without a very strong support and commitment from the European Union. A strong and united Europe is an absolutely fundamental pillar of a strong and effective United Nations, and this is a very clear message I would like to address to you all.